Dude, you almost had a butthead laugh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would totally be us, by the way. If we were Beavis and Butthead, I would be the Beavis one because the monsters would make me the Corn Julio.
Beavis?
Yeah.
Lock your doors, bolt your windows. Here come your hosts, Abnormal Andy and Phantom Dark Dave. The Screaming Skull Podcast.
Welcome to the Screaming Skull Podcast, a place where horror fans can feel at home. And I'm Abnormal Andy, and joining me tonight is Phantom Dark Dave. Dave, how you doing tonight?
Because I join them every night. I'm doing good, man. You know why?
Why is that?
Because I'm in the Christmas spirit, buddy. How about you?
Hell yeah, man. This is, when we're recording, it's December, so definitely getting closer to Christmas every day. And yeah, I think it's soon enough or close enough to where we can start talking about Christmas.
It is, and it's funny because the last episode I was like, oh, it's such a bummer that Halloween's over. And then this episode I'm like, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Because I'm feeling it, man. I put up my Christmas tree today.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, unbox that bitch, put it together because it's not a real tree. That'd be crazy. And got all the decorations up, and Julie and I started doing stuff around the house, just putting me in a very cheerful mood. I drank a second Monster, which makes me in an even more cheerful mood, even though my aunt is probably shaking her head when she hears that I drank 2 in one day. But, it all adds up to a Christmas-themed horror podcast, which is going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, man, people are like, Christmas and horror, what? But yeah, there's all kinds of things that we can connect to, Christmas and horror with, so it's going to be fun. So to start us off, we're going to be talking about some horror news. Me and Dave have both collected some news stories from around the internet, and I was going to fill you guys in on that. And then segment number 2, it's going to be our Christmas ghost story segment. I'm going to teach Dave a little bit about how ghost stories and Christmas kind of meet up, or how they're connected. And then in the main event, we are going to talk about a Christmas horror classic, 1974's Black Christmas.
My personal pick. You're welcome.
Yeah, super excited. It's going to be a fun discussion.
Yeah, man. And that's the deal that Andy and I have. Anytime we do 2 episodes a month, one of us picks one main event while the other chooses the other main event. And I told Andy, like, we've been into horror for over 20 years each, and it's like there's so many. Well, you have the quintessential Christmas horror movies, and then you have like a just insane amount of modern horror movies. And I told Andy we should do one classic and one modern one, and because typically our main events we do modern movies, but I was like, we can't not do one of these classics, you know. And so he and I both thought it was a good idea to interweave, and I asked him, I said, do you want to choose the classic one or the modern one? And honestly, I really thought you were going to choose the classic one, but you surprised me and you chose the modern one.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of change it up a little bit. I know I'm probably the more, well, I don't know, we both like classic stuff, but
I mean, you're older.
Yeah, I probably would.
So, you know.
I'm a little bit older.
Yeah,
a little bit
you're
older.
A little more classic.
But yeah, I probably would be the one to maybe like pick the classic pick first. But this time you know what? I want to kind of look through some of these newer Christmas horror movies, and so that's what we're going to talk about on the next episode. So it's going to be a blast.
So if there's like 3 or 4 horror Christmas classics, and so it's no surprise that one of those choices is going to be 1974's Black Christmas. But when Andy chose the modern one, I got to be honest, I thought it was going to be something in particular, and he totally threw a curveball at me. And so I'm really excited because he picked a Christmas horror movie that neither one of us had seen. And so if modern horror is much more your cup of tea, hang in there. Next episode's going to have that. But yeah, man, let's talk about some horror news. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Horror news.
Andy, I got a question for you. You ever heard of Tim Wagner?
No, I don't think so.
So Tim Wagner is a writer, and he writes novels and short stories, but mainly in the sci-fi, horror, and thriller genres. And so I started looking into stuff that he does, and he writes a lot of books that have media tie-ins, which is an immediate yes for me. I'm like, when you could tie it into stuff that I watch, I'm already invested. And so what I'm saying is I might end up reading some of these guys' books. And so he's written books that connect to Stargate SG-1, which I absolutely love. But he's written books that tie into the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, as well as the Alien franchise and the Supernatural TV show. I know you're a Freddy fan. I know you're an Alien fan. Did you ever watch Supernatural?
Yeah, I watched. I feel like I watched the first few seasons of it. So yeah, I liked what I saw.
Okay, cool. I had only seen the pilot episode of that one. Again, because pilot episodes are like mini movies, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. And then, I never watched it again. It had a shit ton of seasons. But the reason I wanted to talk about Tim is because not only does he do media tie-ins, he does novelizations. And a couple of times you and I talked about different novelizations that are coming out. And so I was wondering what novelizations this guy has done. This year, he partnered with A24 and he wrote the novelizations for X and Pearl. And then early next year will be the release of the novelization for Maxine. And so if you look them up, they're like pocketbook size. They have really cool covers. And I'd be curious to maybe check out one of those and see what his writing style is. But the reason I brought that up is because I'm curious on how far you've got in that trilogy still.
Yeah, so I've seen X. That's the only one I've seen so far.
What has stopped you from watching Pearl?
I don't know. I think, given the time period it's set in, I'm like, well, I'm not really into like
period piece.
I don't know. Yeah, like period pieces but I mean, it's Ty West. I got to give it a chance. I definitely want to see Maxine. I think that's going to be cool. It's set in the 80s. So, I mean, we know that's going to be, I mean, I'm sure that all three movies are excellent. I really liked X. That was a really good
Excellent. I get it.
Yeah. And I had no excuse. I mean, Pearl is readily available for me to watch. And Maxine probably will be pretty soon, if not already. But yeah, I will. I need to.
I think it'll work in your favor because you have waited a little while to watch Pearl. Like all the hype has died down, so you can kind of go into it objectively and see what you think. And I'll tell you, like, Pearl's my least favorite, and it might be your least favorite of the trilogy, but it's by no means a bad movie. It's batshit crazy, and it's very enjoyable. And so if you like Mia Goth, it's worth that alone.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's great. Ty West is great. So I just need to dive in, and I'm sure it's going to be a fun time.
Hey, speaking of Ty West, you and I might be going to our first horror convention next year, which has Ty West.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited.
Yeah, you might watch his movies, man, before you meet him.
Yeah.
You don't want him to be like, oh, Andy, great. I'm so glad you liked my movies. Which one of the trilogy's your favorite? You're like, X?
Yeah. I mean, because, X is pretty cool, so that wouldn't be too far off even if I...
That is true. That might still be your favorite of the three. It's mine, but yeah, still good.
But yeah, you mentioned movie tie-ins, man. I really love those novelizations. I always kind of look to see if there's any novelizations for any new movies that come out. And sadly, there haven't really been too many, but it sounds like this guy is going to be making some, so that's pretty cool. And I even go back to like older movies and look for novelizations. Of course, all the ones for like Halloween and Friday the 13th are stupid expensive. But
even the cool Friday the 13th are too? I've never looked at those.
I think they are. I don't remember, but I know I've looked for them, on eBay and stuff, and I feel like they are especially like part 3. I know I looked that one up, and I think that one was expensive.
Andy's like, even the book was in 3D. That'd be cool if it was like a pop-up book. Oh, I'm in.
Yeah, that would be sweet. Yeah.
I need a Friday the 13th book that's got the buttons where you push it and it makes a sound effect like ch ch ch. One of them's got the sound of the kid drowning. Oh shit.
Yeah, speaking of 80s horror, April Fool's Day is one of our favorite. I think both me and Dave both really enjoy that movie, April Fool's Day. And it's actually getting an upgrade from Kino Lorber. and it really hasn't had any kind of like upgrade as far as from the original DVD for quite some time. So there's going to be a 4K ultra high definition / Blu-ray double disc, and it's going to be released on January 21st. And so the pre-orders are up, so that's pretty cool. The special features, of course, you get the new restored version. It's from a 4K scan of the 35mm original negative, so that's cool. We get new audio commentary by some film historians. We get new audio and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so here we go. Bonus features. We get an interview with director Fred Walton, so that's cool.
Oh yeah.
We get 2 interviews with part 1 and part 2. We get an interview with actress Deborah Goodrich Royce.
Yep.
Interview with actor Clayton Rohner.
Okay.
Another interview with composer Charles Bernstein. That'd be cool.
Ooh, yeah, he did the Nightmare on Elm Street theme.
Nice. We get an interview with cinematographer Charles Minsky.
Okay.
And that has some TV spots and the theatrical trailer. So that's kind of cool.
Man, no Amy Steele stuff?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it.
Is it not?
But,
is it a Steele book too? I mean, some good puns right there. It's an Amy Steele book.
It doesn't say anything about Steelbooks, so not sure on that.
Okay.
But yeah. So we're I think that one, people have been waiting for the upgrade on that one for a while, because I think for years now we've just had kind of the basic DVD that's been out, and so now we have a 4K kind of restored version of it. So that's pretty cool. And I wish they had some of the deleted scenes, or it's always been rumored that there's been some deleted scenes that we haven't seen yet, but they may just be rumors. There's some scenes that talk about where they had an alternate ending.
That's what I'm interested in. Yeah,
I would have really liked to have seen that.
Well, yeah, because that movie has a pretty unique ending all in itself, but then the very, very, very last scene, and you know what I'm talking about, I won't say it, but it's almost it's weird. Like, if you told me that was an added scene or not the first choice or anything like that, I would totally believe it, because the last sequence that's in that movie kind of throws you off from what the rest of the movie is, and I'd be curious to know if they had another one planned.
Yeah, and from what I read about this, the rumored deleted scene it sounds pretty cool. It sounds like it kind of gives another twist on the whole ending and everything. I'll just leave it at that. But
I feel like a little kid every time you say something. I'm like, ooh.
But it's kind of one of those things where it's been in the rumor mill for a long time, and has never really materialized. Kind of like with Children of the Corn, they had this, this deleted scene that's probably been lost, but people keep talking about, well, maybe out there. It's where they actually filmed the scene where they crucified the police officer. And I think in the film, the children refer to him as the Blue Man or something. And in the movie, we see him as just a corpse, like a skeleton with a police uniform on. And I guess there was supposedly like a scene filmed where they actually killed the Blue Man, or they have that confrontation with the police officer. Police officer is trying to stop the kids or whatever. But who knows? It's just kind of one of those rumor things that may not even exist anymore. Sadly, along with this deleted scene that we're talking about with April Fool's Day, some of these old 80s movies, they had these alternate scenes shot, and some of them just got destroyed for whatever reason, and it's a real shame, because it would have been cool to see some alternate endings for some of these older movies.
Yeah, for sure. Every time I hear about that, I think of like Friday the 13th, The New Blood Part 7, because of the way that film was like hella neutered for the MPAA and everything like that. And it's just like, man, what if there was a director's cut or something where we saw more of the death scenes? And there, at that time period, there was no way people even thought about, DVDs and special features and everything like that. And so they half the time didn't save any of that stuff, and it's crushing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Hey, Andy, on the last episode, you were talking about like sequels that are coming out next year. Remember that?
Yes.
Well, one of the ones you mentioned was Final Destination Bloodlines, and I know you and I are both big fans of that franchise. I can't remember. Have you seen them all the Final Destinations?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, I did a little bit of research, and this doesn't spoil anything unless you sit there and count everything, but did you know across those 5 films there are 58 deaths? A lot of people die in that shit. Yeah, that's a lot. If death wants you dead, you're going to die. There ain't nothing to it. But I have a question for you. What do you think of the title, right? Like Final Destination Bloodlines.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder what they're going with that. Where they're going with that. Is it like Bloodlines is like there's some kind of family curse or something like that, or what? Yeah,
that's what I was wondering. It's like, is it going to be one of those things where like everybody that's in this movie is a relative of somebody who died before? Because that's a very cliche thing to do in horror. But the more I sat and I thought about it, I was like, man, what a unique title, like Final Destination Bloodlines. And then I was like, wait a minute, is it really unique? And so I started researching, and Andy, there's actually quite a few horror movies that have bloodlines in the subtext. And so I wrote some down. You want to hear them?
Oh, okay.
And it's just
let's hear it.
It's just as recent as last year. We had the Pet Sematary Bloodlines.
Oh yeah.
In 2022, we had Bloodlines: The Jersey Devil Curse. And are you familiar with the Jersey Devil?
Yeah, the legend. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I knew you did like the crypto mythology stuff like that. I'm a big fan of that stuff too. But for those who don't know, the Jersey Devil is basically a demon that lives in the dark forest outside of Jersey. And I learned all about the Jersey Devil from one of mine and Julie's favorite TV show, which is Comic Book Men. So I had to put that in there. But moving on, we'll go back another 2022, Friday the 13th, Vengeance 2, Bloodlines. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Yeah, I hadn't either. This is a full-length feature. This Friday 13th Vengeance is the title of it. And so this one in particular really caught my interest because obviously it has the subtext Bloodlines in the title, but it has the return of a lot of people who were involved in Part 6, including Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis. It brought back C.J. Graham, who played Jason. It even has a character in there, is the director, Tom McLaughlin. I know you know him.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
Yeah, and it also has Tamara Glenn from Halloween 5. So, I don't know, I think that might be something we have to check out, because at first I thought maybe it was like an 8-minute short or something, and then I looked at the runtime, and it's a full-length feature. It might be one of those web shows or something, but, I mean, if all these people are involved in it, we owe it to check it out.
Yeah, I wonder where it's at. If it's on like YouTube or something like that.
That would be my first guess. And I got 2 more for you. Going back to 2015, Tremors 5, Bloodlines. How are you on the Tremors franchise?
Yeah, no, I'm great. I've seen them all.
You've seen them all, dude.
Yeah.
I've only seen the first one.
Oh, they're so much fun.
So tell me, am I a piece of crap? Do I need to rectify and watch these movies? If I can watch Amityville, I can watch Tremors, right?
Yeah, there is actually one little thing that I haven't seen. They actually had a TV series come out. It only lasted 1 season, but me and Randy from Here on Mars, we were going to check it out. Him and his son, so that was going to be, we're going to have to do that sometime.
And I want to say that today is his son's birthday, so I won't reveal any personal information, but, if Randy or his son ever hears this episode, happy birthday to you. But yeah, we don't want to get sued, right? So that's cool, man. And I know that like Jamie Kennedy shows up in later like Tremors movies, and that enough would probably get me interested in it, because anything that has to do with Scream royalty, I'm in,
Yeah, he's great in them, and yeah, so they're definitely fun movies, so check them out.
Okay, cool. And I'm actually surprised we haven't had a Tremors remake yet, but I'll save that for another conversation. And the last one is going all the way back to 2012. It's another big franchise. I told you about Tremors 5. Well, this is Wrong Turn 5, Bloodlines. So where are you at with the Wrong Turn franchise?
I think I've seen 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's it.
You kick my ass again. I've only seen the first 3.
Oh, okay, so that was something. Well, I was really into the first movie, so I wanted to see. Well, and at the time when I started watching through the sequels, there was only like 4. I might have seen 5 actually too. Now that I think about it, but I never see anything past 5, so I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't see that remake that came out like in 20.
Oh yeah,
whatever,
Yeah.
2021 or whatever that was. Yeah, or
I didn't watch it
earlier
either,
than
but
that.
it's done by the guy who did the first one. He remade his own movie, so that's kind of
okay.
noteworthy. Like that, I listened to another podcast that you and I both like, and they reviewed it, and they said some pretty notable things about it. So that might be worth a watch when we do some modern main events. Maybe we'll venture that and check it out. But yeah, that's all I got for all the movies with bloodlines in the subtext. But it kind of just blew my mind that I was like, oh man, that's so unique. And I started looking it up. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just as awesome as all these other ones, probably.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking about Black Christmas here in a little bit, but I actually ran across a pretty cool news story about Black Christmas. And the headline just says, original Black Christmas will get another theatrical run after 50 years. So it says the original Black Christmas will hit theaters in the U.S. and Canada starting December 7th and run through December 22nd. So yeah, I think they're just kind of at random different theaters. I'm not sure. It doesn't say which theaters it's actually going to be at, but it's probably something to look for. That could be at AMC, it could be at Cinemark, it could be at Regal or B&B, whatever people have around them. I would definitely check for the show times to see if there is a listing near you, because I would love to check it out on the big screen.
Yeah, I've actually known that this was a thing because I go to AMC often, that I have the app on my phone, and so sometimes I spend my spare time just searching up random horror titles to see if anything comes up. Like I also type in like Star Trek and see if there's a Star Trek movie coming, like a Fathom event. And Black Christmas had popped up, but the only bummer thing about it is the same thing happened whenever Texas Chainsaw, it just celebrated its 50-year anniversary or whatever, because I mean, Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw Massacre both came out in 1974. Easily makes 1974 one of the greatest years ever that neither one of us were there to experience. But the sad thing is, the reason this whole point is, in my app, when I search it up, it shows like, oh yeah, Black Christmas 50th anniversary. Not one theater near me. Like, I looked at 20 theaters, none of them are playing it. So it didn't, like, it had a date and everything for Texas Chainsaw, and then the closer it got, it all disappeared. And I'm seeing the same thing for Black Christmas, and so I'm gonna be really sad if this doesn't happen, man. I'm gonna have to start checking out some of the theaters, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at my AMC to see if I have anything. But
it's funny while you say AMC, in my head I'm like, I wonder how you say that. EMC. I've never thought EMC. I want to go to the EMC.
Yeah. So okay. So I do have some showings close to me. So
oh man, see, and that hurts my heart even more, because like, obviously I want you to go have this experience and tell us all about it, and I'm happy for you, but it just solidifies that, like, okay, it really is going to be a thing, because you're going to get it and I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, if nobody got it because they didn't really do it, maybe it's not an AMC thing. Okay, cool. No, it's just not my part of Texas thing, which is really fucking weird, because DFW is a big place. You think somebody would have it over here.
Yeah, really. I mean, yeah, definitely bigger than Kansas City. So
any screamers out there who know about this, reach out, let us know. We have the socials on there. If you're going to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, actually that already passed, you probably saw that one. If you're going to see Black Christmas in theater, we want to know about it. And if any of you are in the DFW airport and you know where it's played in, let us know, because I'm willing to drive to see this movie in theater.
Hell yeah, man.
Hell yeah. All right, Andy. I got a Scream 7 update for you. So.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
All right. Don't tell me you also have a Scream 7 update.
I do.
Are you serious? This is the first time this has ever happened. We said one day this would happen. Like, because Andy and I don't discuss horror news. And so, we can talk about this collectively if you want. But what was your update? Maybe it'll be different.
Yeah, so it was Sydney Prescott's daughter gets cast.
Okay.
So there's an actress that gets cast as her daughter, yeah.
Yep, and that's about the exact same thing I had on here. I was not going to reveal that it was the daughter, just in case. I didn't know how much in the know that is until we see a trailer. But that's the thing is, Scream 7 is so special because it's the return of Kevin Williamson. And,
yes.
Kevin Williamson wrote Scream 1, 2, and 4. He did write a draft and a script for Scream 3, but they didn't go with it because they wanted something more comical. This was the time of Columbine, so I respect, what they did. But there's a reason why 1, 2, and 4 are so freaking great. we lost Wes Craven, and the last two Scream movies that have come out have been fine. Like, they're good movies. Radio Silence has directed them. The guy who is writing them, I wrote his name down. He's also attached to write this next one. So he definitely knows how to write movies, but I feel like something's been missing. And though it's obvious that Wes Craven's been missing, there's something very hopeful about having like a return to form, having Kevin Williamson attached to it. And as we all know from the previous Scream movie, Neve Campbell was, she's been barely related to it, and it feels really good to have her be an important factor going forward.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I did like the last two movies. I thought the Carpenter sisters were fine. They were great characters, but like, yeah, they were. I don't know. Like, I felt like they're almost for like the next generation.
Well, that's the point. Cool, they definitely were.
Yeah, and that's cool. I'm all for like younger people having their slashers or their screams or whatever. Just like we had, Scream was our, the original Scream was our slasher back in the day.
Keep making us sound older, Andy. You're doing great.
I know, but no, I'm actually pretty excited for Kevin Williamson to be back, Neve Campbell to be back, and I think Gail's going to be back to Courtney Cox.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm excited to see where they go with this.
Well, I know you and me. You know what's unique about having Kevin Williamson back is he's not writing it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he's directing it, and he's never directed a Scream movie. And in fact, he's only directed one movie before, and that was back in the '90s when he did Teaching Mrs. Tingle. And so, I got to be brutally honest with you. That makes me even more excited because I'm like Kevin Williamson's got to know Wes Craven so well that it's just going to pay so much respect and love to him. Like, it feels like it's going to be a good Scream movie, and it hasn't even been filmed yet.
Yeah, and I mean, we both talked about where we want the Scream franchise to go, and I think we're both excited about this new direction. I won't say like what we've been discussing necessarily, but there's reasons that we're excited for this new direction.
There is, and part of me wishes Kevin was writing this, but it's kind of, there's something there. I mean, obviously studio involvement's one thing, but when I hear that he's directing and not writing, because these are his characters, there's something about, like, it feels like Kevin's like respecting the guy who's been writing it as well, which also kind of puts Kevin in even cooler standard. And the fifth and sixth movies, I finally found my notes. They were written by James Vanderbilt. And James Vanderbilt wrote Darkness Falls, which was really cool. He did The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, which I absolutely loved. And he did Independence Day Resurgence, which I didn't watch because everybody said it was bad, but it might be good. But I don't know, man. It's just something about it feels really good having Kevin Williamson sitting in the director's chair, even saying like, oh, he's not a director. He's only directed one movie. I'm just like, lights, camera, action. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm ready. Yeah.
And then, of course, we're returning with Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox, who, honestly, just like Kevin Williamson, probably know Wes Craven so well that it feels like a tight-knit family, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And, part of the news that we both looked up was another cast member, and this new actress who's added in, her name is Isabel May. Are you familiar with her?
No, not at all.
Okay, so Isabel May was apparently big for, she was in the TV shows 1883 and 1923, so anybody who loves Yellowstone has probably already seen her, because she was in quite a few episodes of that stuff, and I've never watched those shows. Not really my cup of tea, but let's just say in the business I'm in, I hear about that show all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But what's really funny is if you go further back, one of her earlier roles that she was in makes me laugh really hard because it's in a movie that I bought and still have not opened to watch it yet because I bought it for Julie and I'm letting her do the honors. But it's a movie that she was in back in 2019. You ready for this? It's called Let's Scare Julie. Which is why I bought it.
Kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm probably going to watch that movie, before Scream 7 comes out so I can get a little taste of her acting chops. But yeah, needless to say, pretty cool stuff about Scream 7.
Yeah, for sure. So another, we both are big fans of found footage, and you can't talk about found footage without talking about the Blair Witch Project, right? So I ran across this news story. So I guess the Blair Witch Project is actually getting a new release, as far as like a physical media new release. And the producer says it's finally being released as we always intended. So the producer, Mike Manello, I never even heard of the name before because we've always like talked about the director's. Oh, crap. We've always talked about the directors Daniel Myrick and the other guy,
Eduardo Sanchez.
Anyway,
right?
Yes, thank you, Eduardo Sanchez. Yes.
I pulled that out of my cap, bro. No
doubt. So this guy, this producer, he made a post on social media talking about new release for the Blair Witch Project, and so it was originally, the Blair Witch was originally filmed on Hi8 video, which is like digital video, and it's probably not as good of quality as film. But I guess the black and white pieces were filmed on 16 millimeter, and but back then theaters did not have the video projectors, so they had to transfer stuff over to 35 millimeter film, and so it kind of basically they had to film the video on a special screen in a controlled environment with the 35 millimeter camera. So it's like you were seeing like a recording of a recording when you saw it in theaters. And so, but basically, so there's a company called Second Sight Films, and they have released this. It's a new Blu-ray release of Blair Witch Project, and it's got a lot of extras, including deleted scenes and alternate endings. But I guess they're saying that it's already sold out.
What?
So
I just not heard about it.
I know it's sold out on the official Second Sight Film site. You might be able to get some if you look on Amazon or eBay. I'm sure there's going to be
Home Away from Home
crazy priced. But okay, so the special features, we get a new Second Sight Film restoration from the Hi8 videotapes and 16 millimeter film elements. It was supervised and approved by the producers and directors. There's a 2-disc edition which includes restored and remastered original theatrical cut and a festival cut plus original release version. There's a Blair Witch documentary. It's a new feature-length Second Sight Films production. There's a new audio commentary by Alexandra Heller-Nicholas and Josh Nelson. I don't know who they are.
It's like they're not.
There's also a director's and producer's audio commentary. There are deleted scenes, including previously unseen video and 16 millimeter footage. There is a feature called The Blair Witch Project: Analog Horror in a Digital World. There's the Curse of the Blair Witch, which I think is that pseudo documentary that came out. And there's some alternate endings, and there's the director's interview from Cannes Film Festival from 1999. Cool. And there's a limited edition, which that's probably what's sold out. There's like a slipcase with new artwork. There's a hardback book with all kinds of cool stuff in it. There's Heather's journal, which I'm not sure what that is. I guess it's maybe a replica of the journal that she had in the film. Right. And there's some art cards. So yeah, I mean, they're saying there's been other Blu-ray collector's editions of the Blair Witch Project, but this one kind of seems like the ultimate edition.
Definitive copy. I may have to pick that up because, yes, you're right. You and I big fans, love Blair Witch Project. And I remember when they released part 1 and 2 on DVD, they had it in this like packaged bundle, and it even came with like the Blair Witch necklace, which had like the Stickman thing in there, and I always thought it was super, super cool. Maybe it wasn't even both movies, maybe it was like a movie and a soundtrack or something, but needless to say, I don't have it, but for the right price I would. But I love those, what do you call them? You said pseudo documentaries, is that? I call them mockumentaries, but
yeah, kind of
okay, same thing. Cool,
mockumentaries,
cool.
Yeah.
Like Sticks and Stones, the Burkittsville 7, another one escaping my brain, but there was a handful of them, and even though it's like the same shit recycled, I find it fascinating because you and I lived through that at its hype, and it was so exciting. And anytime I watch that movie, I pretend to watch it for the first time, and it always leaves me with a smile on my face. But not Julie, though. She can't handle all the running with the camera. It makes her nauseous.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of some cool news. Do you have anything else, Dave?
That's all I got for horror news.
Well, so I'm going to continue on. I've got one last article that I found, and this is just kind of like talking about some of the horror stuff that's coming out in December. It's pretty cool. We have some cool movies coming out in December. We have one called Werewolves, and this is in theaters on December 6th. So that's this Friday. So basically, the premise of Werewolves is saying during a supermoon 1 year ago, a dormant gene awoke in humans, which caused a mass werewolf transformation. So it resulting in 1 billion deaths. Wow.
Jeez.
Okay. So now the film takes place 1 year later, and the supermoon is coming back, and the main character is Frank Grillo, which the only other movies I know him from is like The Purge.
Yes.
I think he was in. Yeah,
He's a badass in The Purge, man.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna have to. I've only seen. We talked about this. I've seen the first Purge, and that's the only one.
That's
I've seen.
it. I don't even think he was in the first one though.
No, not the first one. I've seen.
Oh yeah,
the first
Purge. Yeah, you got me. Okay, I'm stupid. All right. Yeah. Side note: you need to watch those. They're a lot of freaking fun.
Yeah. So that sounds like a cool movie.
Have you seen the trailer for it?
No, I think I've seen bits and pieces.
When we went to the theater
trailer
last time, I forgot what it was that we saw. They played that trailer, and funny, we talk about Frank being in The Purge. It literally looks like the movie is The Purge, but with werewolves. Like it just looks action-packed, a lot of brutal deaths, and I know we love werewolves, man. Shout out to Marty, he loves werewolves too, but yeah, a good werewolf movie is always something we need more of, and so this actually looks like it's going to check that box in a fun way.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love monster movies, love werewolf movies, so definitely going to jump on that when it comes out. The next one is a movie called Y2K, and this is also in theaters on December 6th, and this is from A24. It says Kyle Mooney's, whoever that is, directorial debut.
Isn't that the guy that did Skinamarink?
Oh, okay.
I'm going to look him up while you're talking.
Okay. So this is an alternate history version of New Year's Eve on 2000. So you know me and Dave, we both lived through the whole Y2K thing.
Yep.
And how everybody thought that whenever things changed over to the year 2000, things were going to, like all the computers were going to like explode. Or not explode, but kind of like freak out. And like all of the like financial records, like basically
that was the first time where everybody started buying water like crazy, by the way. It wasn't COVID,
it was
guys.
crazy.
It was Y2K.
Yeah, so, and now we know that Y2K was fine. Nothing crazy happened. But this movie asks the question, well, what if it did? What if something crazy did happen? And so this is kind of a dark comedy. And so in this one, devices actually come to life with murderous intentions and go after a cast including Rachel Zegler, Tim Heidecker, and amazingly, Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst playing himself.
Oh, boy.
All right.
Here we go.
Yep.
Oh, and side note, I was wrong. The director of Skinamarink is not Kyle Mooney, but they were both named Kyle, so that's where I got that confused. Kyle Mooney is predominantly known as an actor. So he did a lot of voices and was in a lot of comedies, so that makes sense that he's directing a comedy now. But okay, yeah, he was tied in with like Zoolander 2 and Neighbors 2. So, all right, well, since this one's a comedy, maybe it's in his wheelhouse.
Okay, this was also coming out December 6th, and this is from IFC Films and Shudder. This one's called Getaway, and this one was actually written by Nick Frost, and it's another horror comedy. And I think we've talked about this one before. This one looks kind of cool. It takes place on an island with a dark history. So Nick Frost is actually also starring in this movie. So Nick Frost and his family are a clueless tourists who come to observe some gruesome traditions they definitely do not understand. So this it's a take on The Wicker Man and Midsummer, and it kind of weaves some other twists in there too. But it's going to have humor but a lot of bloodshed too. So this one's probably going to be pretty cool. What do you think?
I think it sounds like a movie you'll love, because I know you like The stuff that Nick Frost is in, probably more than I do, but I definitely respect what he's done. And so I'm probably going to wait to see what you say before I watch it.
Yeah, I've been a pretty big fan of him, and also,
Simon
ever
Pegg.
since Shaun of the Dead,
Yeah.
Simon Pegg, yeah, they're great. Sometimes British comedy hits for me, and sometimes it doesn't. Just kind of like with Monty Python. So
I bet you watch
Monty
Downtown
Python's-
Abbey, don't you?
Hell no, I don't even know.
Me neither. Never heard
I
of
don't
it.
think that's even comedy. Is it?
Probably not. I've never seen it. It's just British.
Yeah.
British.
It's funny because you want to say Downtown Abbey, but they say Downton Abbey or something like
Well,
that.
that's how you know that I don't watch it because I pronounced it wrong. But one thing that's really cool.
No, you pronounced it.
Oh,
you
did I get
pronounced
it right? Okay.
Actually.
How do you know?
Yeah.
Do you watch it? But one thing that's cool is the channel BBC.
Oh yeah.
Clear your brains, people. I'm not talking about, you know what I'm saying, not a tripod situation here, you feel me? No, the British channel. I like that channel because I respect that they play a shit ton of Star Trek Next Generation because Picard, Jean-Luc
yeah.
Picard.
So the last movie, it's probably not the last movie that's come out, but it's the last one we're going to talk about because
What do you got?
This is the big one.
Okay.
This is what everybody's been talking about. I've been seeing film review sites already talking about it. Coming out on December 25th, we have Nosferatu.
Oh, yeah.
The remake.
Yes.
And this is coming from Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, and The Lighthouse. Yeah. So I think everybody is super excited about this. Nosferatu is one of those old vampire movies. It's like the first Dracula. And it's one that we've all seen. We've seen the silent version and stuff. And Dave, I know you're a big fan of it.
That's right. Max Schreck, possibly the greatest vampire ever.
Yeah. So this one is going to cast. The cast is going to include Nicholas I can't talk. Jeez, Nicholas Hoult. Oh my god. Nicholas Hoult. I think it's Hoot. Oh my gosh. Hoult. Everybody out there in podcast land, you can say it for yourself.
Huh.
I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with that. Nicholas Hoult. We'll just say that. Okay.
That's okay. He probably can't say Abnormal Andy, so.
Yeah, there you go. Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, and Willem Dafoe. And then the guy that's playing Count Orlok himself is Bill Skarsgård, who played Pennywise. So
when he was cast as Pennywise, obviously I was a little on the fritz about the whole situation because I hold the original It miniseries near and dear to my heart. He did a great job as Pennywise. It's not my Pennywise, but it is terrifying and it works and it's something different. So I respect it. But going forward, I was like, man, this guy is getting cast as all these like monsters now, and who is he to get to play the Crow and all these things? And I think I did tell you, hell, I might have said it on this podcast, but I actually watched the Crow, air quote, remake, and I liked it. And before people boo and get pissed, it's a completely different movie. So to even call it a remake, it's like a new vision. It's completely different, and maybe it's for the kids today. I don't know what you want me to tell you. It's definitely not the traditional perfect Brandon Lee the Crow movie. But the reason I bring it up is I gained some respect for him as an actor, and so knowing that he's playing Nosferatu, I'm really excited to see how he does because I've noticed that he really does embody his characters pretty well.
yeah, he does, and so yeah, that's gonna be cool. Definitely looking forward to that. So I think we've been going on with horror news long enough, so I think this is a perfect time to jump into some Christmas ghost stories.
Ooh.
Yeah, so when I mentioned this to Dave, he's like, Christmas ghost stories, what? And yeah, so people may not like really equate the two, but if you look at like some Christmas songs, such as Andy Williams' banger, "The Most Wonderful Time of the Year," which I'm sure that Dave is a huge fan
Absolutely.
of. He mentions scary ghost stories in that song.
Good
and
pull.
so it got me thinking. Yeah, it got me thinking. Like, what did that come from? Like, why did he include that in the song? And back in Victorian times, back in England, there was this tradition, back before they had televisions and stuff like that. This is way before even electricity, I guess. They just had fires and stuff, and whenever the sun would go down,
and he's like, all they had was fire.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they had fires in their houses to
sounds horrible.
Cook their food and stuff. Yeah. So they have fires where they cook their food and stuff like that. And so in wintertime, the sun would go down earlier and earlier, so they would have less daylight. So whenever after the sun went down, they couldn't really work anymore outside and stuff. So they would kind of sit around the fire and tell stories. And so during Victorian times, there was a certain author that came up and became really popular, and that was Charles Dickens. And he came out with probably the most classic Christmas ghost story of all time, A Christmas Carol. Yep. And I'm sure everybody out there knows the story. It's Ebenezer Scrooge. He is kind of like, he doesn't have any Christmas spirit at all. He's kind of like he's
a Grinch.
Yeah, he wants to keep working. Yeah, he's a Grinch. He's like a miser. Like he like hoards money, and he makes his one employee, Bob Cratchit, work on Christmas. And he thinks Christmas is a complete waste of time. Anyway, on Christmas night, he gets visited by 3 ghosts. He gets visited by his old friend Jacob Marley, who warns him that he's going to be visited by 3 ghosts. And we get the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future, which definitely brings on the horror elements with that ghost. I think it's kind of the more scarier one of the 3. And so that's kind of what popularized these ghost stories. With that story being popular, so people began to tell more ghost stories around the Christmas time. And so that's kind of where the tradition comes from. And even you had old legends like Krampus, and that comes from like Europe, like Eastern Europe and places like that. So I think there is some like scary elements to Christmas, and I think for us in America, I think it's definitely been like, I don't know what the term is. It's been like made safe for the kiddies or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Like, it's been kind of like.
Well, in America, they're like, that shit doesn't sell as good at, you got to let the kids want toys, and you got to tell nice stories. And I mean, there's a reason Hallmark doesn't make horror movies, Andy.
Exactly. They didn't make a Chiefs love story. Oh, never mind.
Oh.
Probably gonna lose half my listeners to that one.
What, your listeners?
So anyway,
I thought they were our listeners, and they were screamers.
Oh, our listeners.
Jeez, yes. There goes another one.
Yeah. Okay, so I have kind of a list of. I just wanted to share with you, Dave. If you're not familiar with Christmas ghost stories,
yeah, just hold on a second. I'm going to start a fire. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I wanted to share with you some other Christmas ghost stories that you might want to check out. So there's a short list here. So we have one called "How Fear Departed the Long Gallery," and this is by E.F. Benson. So I was reading like the synopsis for the story. It says for the Paravilles, that's the last name of the family, I guess. The appearance of a ghost is no more upsetting than the appearance of the mailman at an ordinary house, except for the twin toddlers in the long gallery. So it must be ghost toddlers? I don't know. It says no one would dare be caught in the long gallery after dark. But upon this quiet and cloudy afternoon, Madge Peveril is feeling rather drowsy. So I guess it's kind of about her experience in the long gallery.
The hardest thing about reading a lot of old literature, and I say this because I've went back and tried to read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe, is the fucking terminology on some of this stuff. Like, the long gallery.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
You got to kind of get into character to really understand it, and then at that point, you might find yourself Googling some phrases because you're like, what?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it could be a little cumbersome. Maybe you could do like a audiobook or something.
But even then, I'm like, what did they say, Andy? Not the fact that I can't pronounce it. I got to understand it. So I need the movie version, but I like where this is going. So you
need the Gen Z version of these.
Oh, at least the millennial. Come on, man. That's where I was at.
So Charles Dickens actually didn't just write one. He wrote a couple of Christmas ghost stories. This one's called The Signal Man. And this was first published in 1866, and for a special Christmas issue of All the Year Round. And so, but since then, this story has kind of fallen into obscurity. But it's an eerie story of isolation, dread, and supernatural visitation. It's actually, there's a man is visited by a hooded ghost, and so it sounds kind of cool
and kind of familiar. I mean,
let's see. We have one called The Crown Derby Plate by Marjorie Bowen. And this one says, Old Miss Pym returns to Hartley's, an eerie house on the marshes, to recover the missing plate and a precious set of china she bought years ago. The person who greets her at the door, a gross figure in a shapeless gown, guides Miss Pym to the object of her desire. Yet soon after holding the plate, she becomes aware of a smell, a foul smell, a very troubling smell indeed. So that sounds interesting to see where that goes.
Did you say their last name was Hartley?
The Hartleys, yeah.
Man, that makes me think of that movie, The Haunting of Molly Hartley. I wonder if that pulled from that old literature.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm on to you, 2008 film. Can't run.
So the next one is called The One Who Saw by A.M. Burrage. This was originally published at Christmas in 1931 and widely regarded as the author's masterpiece. It tells the story of a writer enchanted by the specter of a weeping woman. His obsession builds until her ghostly hand falls from her face, and he, in horror, becomes the one who sees. That's interesting.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Okay, this one's called Christmas Eve on a Haunted Hulk. And I think when they say Hulk, they mean like a ship.
Yeah, these fucking titles are killing me. Go ahead.
This is by Frank Cowper, and it says, when he finds an abandoned duck punt on Christmas Eve. What the heck is that? Oh, man, okay, I don't know, yeah.
Duck butter? What?
It says, okay, so when he finds, I think it's like a duck blind or something like that. So, because it says a hunter rows out into the marsh and comes across a shipwreck. He climbs aboard to explore and finds himself trapped when a surge snaps the mooring line and his punt floats away. So, I guess maybe a duck boat or something like that. It says sleep eludes him, and soon he discovers that he's not the only one trapped on the derelict ship.
A lot of screamers who are hunters are probably laughing at us and hating us for not knowing what that is. But yeah, cat's out of the bag. I'm not a hunter, and Andy, you don't look like a hunter either. So
no, but I'm familiar enough with. I bet you it's probably like.
Andy's like, I've seen Duck Dynasty. Shut up.
Yeah. But you know how sometimes like duck hunters, they will get in a little boat and go out in the middle of a pond and they'll set out decoys and wait for ducks to fly in to kind of swim with the decoys, and then they'll shoot them from the boat.
Man, the closest thing I've ever seen to anything like that is the Mighty Duck franchise, where they blow the that's all I got.
Yeah.
I mean, but I am a hunter, so fuck that. I hunt for DVDs, bro.
There you go. Yeah. So this next story is called The Green Room, not to be confused with that movie that came out a little while ago with
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart, yeah. This is called The Green Room by Walter D. Lemire. It's behind the rundown bookstore is a private room for favored customers. Ooh. A strange little annex with a stranger atmosphere. The young man feels a wistful presence vying his attention. This sounds like, you know what this sounds like?
Tell me.
It sounds the back room of a video store.
Yeah. I know what presence you're feeling.
Says the young man feels a wistful presence. Oh, man, I can't read this without cracking up. Okay.
It's okay. You better leave that stuff in, too, because
okay,
that's funny.
So,
all right.
Yeah. So, anyway, he browses this back room, and when he leaves, he knows he will return. Something has been asked of him, and he will answer. Okay, so the green room. There you go.
Well, you know, that also sounds like that could have been a pretty gnarly Twilight Zone episode. Like, I'm not saying it is. It's not as far as I am concerned, but there's something to that. Like, you're describing it, and I want to see that already.
Yeah, so the next one is The Apple Tree by Daphne du Maurier. It says, a widower admits only to himself that his wife's death is a relief. It says, yet now he's free of her hectoring, which I think is kind of like nagging or something like
bitching,
that, probably.
Yeah.
He still feels her presence.
Yeah.
Does he feel guilty, or does that weather-beaten tree in the orchard bear an uncanny resemblance to her hunched posture?
Ugh.
Okay.
She looks like a tree?
Yeah, man.
No wonder he chopped her down. Okay.
Okay, let's see here. We're just going to do one more here. This one looks cool. Okay, so I've heard of this author, M.R. James. He's done some pretty well-known ghost stories. He did one called The Diary of Mr. Pointer. And it says, when James Denton discovered an ancient bit of fabric within an 18th century diary, he showed it to his aunt, who insisted the wavy, hair-like pattern would be perfect to accent his windows. The sensitive artisan tasked with the copying of the cloth, however, saw evil in its design. The curtains now hung do fill Denton with a creeping unease. Surely, he thinks, absently reaching down to pet his dog, the feeling must be imagined. Okay, haunted curtains?
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I know about bed sheets, but hey.
Oh, yeah. So that's just kind of like I feel like there's a lot of other Christmas ghost stories out there, but that's kind of like a sampling out there, and a lot of these are like from the Victorian times. So like we talked about, the language is going to be probably kind of antiquated, maybe hard to follow in some cases. So I'm sure if you do like a Google search, don't Google BBC, but
yeah, don't do that.
But Google like Christmas ghost stories, you'll probably find some modern ones out there, because I just think that this time of year, you know, like we talked about earlier, the sun sets earlier, so the nights are longer, and so that just kind of lends itself to kind of a creepy atmosphere. And we know we have some cool Christmas horror movies out there, and so maybe this will inspire you guys, you screamers out there, to go and find some Christmas horror stories.
For sure, and we're not downplaying possibly how great the older stories are. And some people go to college to learn to translate that stuff and appreciate it. We're just saying there's definitely going to be a barrier for some of us trying to read it, but no doubt that it isn't classic in its own right. But Andy, you know what else is classic in its own right?
What's that?
Black Christmas from 1974, our main event.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
The main event.
All right, man. So the main event that I picked, as mentioned before, Black Christmas, 1974. And the reason that I chose this one against all its competitors is because I needed to rewatch it. I've seen this movie a handful of times, but it's been a little while. And I wanted to watch it again. And I felt that we kind of had to start with this one because it feels like a staple of Christmas horror movies.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this is, when you say Christmas horror, I think this is the first one that comes to mind for most people. I mean, this is, when I think back to the earliest Christmas horror movie I've saw, this might have been the first. It might have been what's the one with the killer Santa Claus?
Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, that might have actually been the first one I saw, but I would be surprised if this wasn't the first one.
Silent Night, Deadly Night actually was the first one that I had seen, unless you talk about Jack Frost from 97, late 90s, because that played on USA a lot. But the thing about Black Christmas is, it's like I knew of it, but I never watched it until it made its appearance on DVD. And I used to always see it on the shelves, but I never got it because for whatever reason, I understand now, but I could never understand at the time why this one was so expensive. Like, this one was never cheaper than $20 brand new. And I could never find a previously viewed copy. And that's because people weren't returning this movie, man. People really like this movie. And before we get into a lot of like spoilers and stuff, I want to tell you that if you haven't seen it, please see the movie before Andy and I talk about it, because there's some things that'll get spoiled, but I think most people are really going to like this movie if they haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it in a while, I urge you to go ahead and watch it again. It's on Peacock, it's on Tubi, and it's on Shudder. And so just want to get that out of the way because, spoiler, I bet we both like this movie, at least to a degree.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this is in my book, it's a classic. I think it inspired so many movies that came after it. You know, you can look at Halloween. I'm sure it inspired that, but it has like that iconic point of view shot that we get with so many 80s slashers.
Well, that's what's crazy, dude, is I mentioned not seeing this for a while, so I definitely never watched this movie with an air quote critical eye, you know, because we're not critics, but knowing you're going to review it, you kind of pay attention to it in a different light. And I gotta say, man, like, you often hear about how like John Carpenter was inspired to make Halloween based on this movie and based on an interview with Bob Clark, who directed it. And I mean, I 150% would believe that, because I see nothing but inspiration written all over this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, like it's just
like you said, those POV shots in the beginning, the stalker vibe of our killer in this, the kind of 3 or 4 girl cast that are your primary characters in this. And, this movie, it was written by Roy Moore, who really didn't go on to do a lot, but it was directed by Bob Clark. And, we know Bob Clark. He did A Christmas Story. He did Porky's 1 and 2. He did Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. And, of course, Black Christmas. But, Andy, just a side thing, what would be your favorite Bob Clark movie?
Wow, okay. Yeah, there's a lot to pick from here. My favorite one. Man, I would have to probably say Christmas Story.
Christmas Story, yeah, that's a great one.
If I'm being honest, yeah.
Okay, awesome. But I want to talk about this movie, talk about things that I really like about it, because there's a lot of characters in it, and sometimes that could ruin a horror movie. And in this particular situation, I'll say for me, it did not, because I thought, just down the list, there was great acting in this movie. I was really engaged with each of the characters, and the film did a good job with making me like the ones I was supposed to like and dislike the ones I was supposed to dislike. Just going down the list, you have your main character, Jess, who's played by Olivia Hussey. She's kind of your final girl in this movie. You have Peter, who's her boyfriend, who's also like the red herring in the movie. You have Barb, who is played by Margot Kidder, who is kind of drunk and raunchy in this movie. And we love Margot Kidder. She's always great in everything she's in, Amityville. You have Lieutenant Ken Fuller, I should say, played by John Saxon, who is always great and is always a fucking detective and lieutenant in everything he's in. Even if he's Nancy's dad, he's still a cop. You have Miss Mack, who is a lot of the comical relief. She's the drunk, funny character in this movie. She's wonderful. You have Phil, who's a woman in this movie named Phil, spelled Phyl. I think that's the only time I've ever seen it spelled that way, but she's great, and her name is Andrea Martin, and she actually, this is for Julie, this is a little note, she played Ishka in DS9, so she's going to love that when she hears that, but that's a shout out to my Ferengi fans. We have Claire and her dad, Mr. Harrison, in this. We have her boyfriend, Chris. It's Claire's boyfriend, played by Art Hindle, who's really fucking cool because he's a hockey goalie in this movie. And then you have, a couple other cop characters that are really great. You have Graham, who traces phone lines, and Sergeant Nash, who's a dumbass. And the reason I say that is you hear all those names, you're like, geez, like that's a lot of people. And it is, but this movie has such great pacing that, Andy, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I've seen this a handful of times, but the reason I haven't seen it more is this movie used to feel really slow to me, and just kind of like, I don't know, something about it, but I don't know what it is. I rewatched it for this podcast, and it was like watching it for the first time. I really find myself kind of falling in love with it. What's your take on some of this stuff?
Wow, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it a few times before now, and rewatching this one did kind of refresh some things in my brain, mainly kind of how the story went and what some of the roles that some of the characters played. And yeah, you mentioned there's a lot of characters. I mean, this is like a sorority house. So there's like a lot of women in this house. There's a house mother. There's people constantly coming and going. So it's like, how do you make that scary? But they did a good job with it. You really get that sense of isolation. And I think being set around Christmas time, there are people that are leaving to go on holiday break. So the house is like maybe more emptier than usual. Yep. And you have people that are like asleep, so they're not around. I mean, they're there, but they're like asleep out of the picture. So it's kind of creepy because you have stuff happening. It's like, the main girl, Jess, she feels like she's alone, but there's people like asleep in other parts of the house, but you don't really see them. And just like Olivia Hussey, she plays a great character in this. I recognize her from Romeo and Juliet and also from It.
Yes.
The It miniseries.
Yes.
And so she's a very familiar face. And you have John Saxon. He's a legend in B-movie cinema. You have Margot Kidder, Superman, and also Amityville, like what Dave said. And
she was also in The Clown at Midnight. I don't know if you remember that, but she was in it.
Oh, okay. That's right. She was like the older teacher.
Yeah. And, Andy, I'm going to piggyback off something else that you kind of said because it's more of my notes going here. Another thing that's really cool about this movie that's executed really well was it has great holiday atmosphere. Like that sorority house is a perfect and creepy setting, but also, this movie being filmed in the 70s and also in Canada, like it screams things like, okay, it's got the vibes of like Halloween, Carrie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which again, making 70s such a great decade for horror. But also, Canadian locations. We had Prom Night, we had My Bloody Valentine, we had this movie here. It just, the reason that all those movies are so great, it just makes sense that they'd all be related in this form and fashion, being 70s and 80s horror movies in Canada. And I found myself much liking this town just the same way I like Haddonfield in Halloween.
Yeah, you really get a sense of the town, even though we don't really see much of it. You really, through the characters, they're talking about the town and things like that. So you really get a sense of what the town maybe, or what it's like in their opinion, because a lot of these girls are from out of town. And so they have their own definite opinions about the people from town and things like that. So I think that definitely plays into the characterizations that they bring. And it brings some depth to their character. But, talking about the house itself, it's a really great setting for this movie because it is decked out for Christmas, but it does have this really creepy vibe because there's like these floors. You got the ground floor, which is kind of where everybody is most of the time, but you have like the second floor where the bedrooms are, and then you have the attic, which in most scary movies, the basement is like the scary place of the house, where in this one it's the attic, and it's really interesting. So like, not to. It's pretty quick that we get our first kill in this movie. It doesn't really waste too much time, which I appreciate. And so, like, the first kill, actually, or the first victim is actually sitting in the attic for the whole movie. And if, like, actually in plain sight for everybody to see, but nobody really notices. Like, she's sitting up in the attic window.
What a kill that is, too. I love that kill.
Yes, and it's super creepy setup because it's Claire, we're, like I said, we're going to spoil it.
Yeah.
So this is Claire, and she is packing to go out of town. Her father's going to come pick her up the next day. And while she's packing, she hears the cat, Claude. And, she actually sees the cat, and she's, like, petting him, and she sets him down. And then she hears him meowing, and I wasn't sure if this was actually the cat, or if we're supposed to be led to believe this is the killer trying to
right,
lure them into
because we find out in this movie our killer can do so many different voices. Like, it is insane.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is crazy when you hear, like, so the killer makes these phone calls, and there's just, like, he sounds like a woman, he sounds like a man, he sounds like a baby crying. It's just crazy the range this guy has. But, so she gets killed because she goes to check out the cat meowing, and she gets suffocated by this plastic. I think it's like a plastic clothing bag.
It's like one of those like when you take your shirt to the dry cleaners and you bring it back, or your jacket.
Yeah, it's like the plastic
exactly
outer
and
thing.
Whenever she gets suffocated in that bag, like, it's a horrific scene. It's done really well. And then later in the movie, the cat jumps on her and then starts chewing on the plastic. And I so identified with that because my buddy Kick over here, my Maine Coon, he loves to chew on plastic because I read that cats do that to clean their teeth and also settle their stomach. And so when I saw that, I was like, of course the cat's chewing on the plastic. It made so much sense.
Another cool thing is in this whole movie, we never see the killer's face. We see like hints of it.
Right.
Like even in this first death scene, we see the face through the plastic, but we don't actually get a clear look. And they've done it, like Bob Clark has set up the scene so well that we never really get to see the killer, even though we see like glimpses, we see parts of his face, I guess, in later scenes. But he does it so well, we never really get a sense of who this guy is, who this person is.
I'm going to say it, man. I might piss people off, but this was Michael Myers, dude. This was like the shape in this movie. It's all over the place. Yeah. It's very, very well done.
Yeah, I agree. I can see definitely some inspiration that John Carpenter took from it.
For sure, like this guy was the perfect stalker in this movie. The way that he transcends, same way that Michael Myers does, going from one room to another, watching the kills from outside the house, giving us that POV footage. Like, I couldn't believe the amount of Halloween that was in this movie. And then again, this predates Halloween by 4 years. And I think that's another thing that I found myself in awe about it, was just seeing the craftiness that Bob Clark has in not showing us everything up front, but still giving us everything we want.
Yeah, I thought, and going back to the killer, he makes these phone calls to the sorority house, and I thought it was interesting because they were already expecting the calls even before he. So, like in the beginning of the movie, we see him get into the house, right? And we presume that's when the calls start, but no. The girls, they say, "Oh, it's the Moaner." They already have a nickname for this guy.
Yeah, that's also my nickname, by the way. Oh, weird. Okay.
But it makes me wonder, okay, so they were getting obscene phone calls before, so is this the same person? Was he calling from somewhere else? Or was this just did the killer just like find a place where they were getting calls already and he's just kind of like taking over or whatever for the obscene call?
Well, Andy, I'm going to say he's been calling that. You know why?
Why is that?
Because he knew that dope-ass phone number had fellatio in it.
Yeah, that was a funny scene. So like later on whenever the girls are going to the police department to report Claire being missing, the police are not really taking it very seriously. Like, oh, she's just shacked up with her boyfriend. And so Margot Kidder, I forget her character's name, but
Barb
is kind of Barb.
Yeah.
She's this no nonsense character. And so she kind of gives crap back to the police, and so like the sergeant, he's asking her, well, what's the phone number for the sorority house in case we need to reach you?
Yeah, and this is Sergeant Nash, the dumbass I was telling you about. Yeah,
and so I guess back in this time they had these exchanges that were actually like letters or something. I don't know. Yeah, because she says it's.
Let me get out my rotary phone. Jeez.
Yeah, it's fellatio.
Yeah.
20880, when he's like, fellatio, she's like, yeah, it's a new exchange, FE. So I guess it's like, I don't know how this all worked back then, but this is even before my time, and I'm an old man, so it tells you how old it is. But yeah, so, and he just totally doesn't understand what fellatio is, and he just doesn't get it.
Yeah, and so, it's kind of a funny joke throughout the movie whenever the detectives are getting the phone number and he's reading it to him like, oh, it's fellatio, new exchange. And they're like, it's just kind of funny because he says you wouldn't find your nose if it wasn't attached to you or something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I thought there's some cool little things to think about with this killer. Like, is this the first time he's actually called or not? And but
he's a great antagonist. Like, he doesn't even have a name. We barely see parts of his face. You can piece it together, but I call him the stalker. You can call him the moaner, whatever you want, but that's my title, damn it. But no, everything from the phone calls to hiding in the attic, and Andy, the type of kills that we get. Like we mentioned, okay, we got the suffocation of Claire. Like, what's with the crane hook for Miss Mac? Like, I didn't see that shit coming.
Oh, yeah.
That was intense.
Yeah. That was crazy. And I mean, we don't actually we see that he swings it at her, but we don't see him make contact. But then we do kind of see the aftermath.
Right.
And yeah, it's a great kill. I mean, it's minimal special effects, but it's done very effectively.
It is. And then of course Barb, she gets real drunk and she has to go to her room to sleep it off. And Barb gets stabbed to death in the face with the glass unicorn, and that's brutal, man.
Oh yeah, it's such an unlikely weapon for them to use too.
See, I knew unicorns were deadly, bro.
Yeah.
And then Phil, she gets killed, but she gets killed off screen because she goes to check on Barb, and the killer is hanging out in Barb's room. And so we don't see this, and so we get an off-screen death. But I wasn't even mad about it because of the way that they have cleverly done these death scenes. You didn't feel like you were missing anything, and so it works because, again, we do get the aftermath.
Yeah, and I like the scene, the scenes here where we do get glimpses of the killer. We see his eye through the door.
Yes.
That was really cool. So like I said, they don't ever show his face or show him, but we do see glimpses of him. So it kind of leaves this mystique around him, and like, who is he? And we really don't know.
Right. What do you think about, like, Jess is our main character. She's a great final girl, but she has this, like, confrontation with her boyfriend, Peter, who was played by, I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm going to do what you did earlier, but it's Kier Dulia. But holy shit, from 2001 Space Odyssey, so great to see him again, but he's a total asshat in this movie.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's the red herring, and so what did you think about their relationship?
Yeah, it was definitely. I wasn't sure what to make of it because it seemed like they didn't really have. They weren't really a very great match. It didn't seem like, but they must have had some kind of relationship up to this point. But
yeah, definitely had a physical relationship because she's pregnant.
Right. But they didn't really seem to have too much chemistry. Other than that, it seems like.
Well, and that's what's kind of red herring about this is she's going to tell him she's going to get an abortion, which is such a hot take in the 70s. Holy shit. Kudos to Bob Clark for putting this kind of stuff in the movie. But then he wants to have the movie, holy shit. He wants to have the, yeah, I want the movie too. He wants to have the baby. And so the relationship was already weird, but this escalated it into like dangerous territory because he's like, if you abort that baby, you'll be sorry. And it's like, okay, so is he an abusive boyfriend? Like, he comes off very aggressive and angry, and he wants to be a concert pianist, and at one point in the movie he gets so mad that he destroys that piano, kind of leading us to the fact that, oh, is he the killer? And to be brutally honest, he does resemble our killer a little bit.
Yeah, he does, even with the voice on the phone calls that the girls are hearing. Like, there's that one part where he switches to his normal voice and says, "I'm going to kill you."
Yes.
So I mean that could even be Peter.
The only thing that was missing on the phone calls, there should have been like concert piano music playing in the background.
Yeah.
Like, wait, Peter, is that you?
I think the writers and the directors they did. Bob Clark did a great job with giving us these suspects, but not really but kind of not making it obvious who it was, and we really still don't know who it was. And I think that's an interesting aspect about this movie is we never really get any closure because the killers because the police think they have the killer, but
right.
They actually don't.
Well, see, what happens is you got to wait for Black Christmas Part 2, and then we find out that Peter was not her boyfriend. It was actually her brother. Oh, Halloween 2. But, no, man, and, let's talk about the ending real quick, too. What a unique way, because she, finds out the killer. And this is crazy because this is the whole urban legend of the calls coming from inside the house. And we've all heard that one shape, way, or form. That was introduced to me in urban legend back in the late 90s. And then I thought that originated, like, I knew it was like an urban legend, but I thought in a film it originated in that one movie. What's the name of that movie? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Stranger in the House. They remade it.
Don't answer the phone, I think. Was that?
That is not the title.
No. Oh, When a Stranger Calls.
When a Stranger Calls, yes. And they even made a sequel, When a Stranger Calls Back. But I was shocked that that When a Stranger Calls actually came out after this movie. And so, though other movies probably did it before, like, this was a big horror movie that did it first. So, pretty cool twist. And I even remember going, wait, how the hell are they calling? They set it up early in the movie. They said there's 2 phone lines because Mrs. Mack has her own phone line. And so I'm led to believe that's probably the one that he's calling from when he calls Jess all the time. And that's the only way that made, and when that made sense, that made me like really appreciate that I didn't have to suspend disbelief too much. I'm like, oh, there's a little bit of logic to this. But once identified that the killer is calling from in the house, she kind of barricades herself in the basement. We talked about how terrifying the attic is. Well, the basement's not much safer because outside the house, we assume the killer's trying to get her, and then the killer breaks the window and comes in, but it's not the killer, it's Peter. Or is Peter the killer? I don't know, but she is led to believe it is because she actually kills Peter with a fire poker.
Yeah, that was really. I mean, it's one of those positions you just don't know. Like, you can't really blame her because Peter was kind of acting very unhinged up to this point.
Absolutely.
So he could have very well have been the killer, and so that's kind of how the movie ends. The police come and they kind of get her out of the basement. They sedate her because she's kind of in a very she's
like traumatized. Yeah,
traumatized.
And, they have Peter. who has up in this time proven himself to be the killer. So it only makes sense that they feel like the case is resolved, right?
Right. And
which is unfortunate because it's not. I love the way that this movie ends, dude.
Oh yeah, it was a very bleak ending, you know. And I wonder, like, you know, the police officer that was sitting outside the house, who killed him? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, you know, we got a killer who can be anywhere, much like Michael Myers, or there's always the two-person killer theory, and that takes us down a whole other, you know, rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, yeah. So,
but our killer, Andy, you know, sometimes is like two people because the schizo-ness of them. So
that's true. Yeah. I was wondering, is there any other movies that you can think of where the killer gets away like this, or there's like a mistaken identity?
I'm sure there are. They're not like, I didn't pre-plan for that question, so I know what it feels like to be put on the spot, just like I do to you all the time. Thanks. But I will tell you one thing. This movie did give me a lot of vibes of another movie, and it's a movie that I really, really like, and that is He Knows You're Alone.
Oh yeah,
it fits this movie perfectly, dude.
That's true. Yeah, that's another good one from the 70s. That's
I think it was
like
1980 on the money too, like late 70s.
Okay.
Yeah, but gosh, one day I'm gonna have to talk you. I know you don't like that one as much as I do, but I might have to pick that as my, you know, runner-up segment or something.
Yeah,
but
for
sure. Andy, I don't know, man. You want to rate this movie?
Yeah. So you want me to go first?
You know what? No. I don't want you to go first. I want to go first because I picked it. You ready for this?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to make Screaming Skull history by telling you I give this 5 out of 5 Screaming Skulls. And the reason I say make history is because we've already had a 5 out of 5 rating, and we've already had it from me, but I'm going to double down and say I'm doing it again. I rewatched this movie, and I don't know what it was about seeing it again this time. You know, it could have been the monster I was on, man. It could have been just the opportunity of really being able to dive deep in it. Could be me in the Christmas spirit. But, you know, if you're looking for a Christmas horror movie, I can't recommend this one enough. I absolutely love it. It is a near perfect horror movie, but as well that I rate movies, it just, I don't know. It did it for me. I really felt it. I was in touch with Bob Clark's technique. I was totally bought into our killer and our characters, and it just left me not feeling like it was slow at all. I just really loved it. So I'm going to give it a perfect score, 5 out of 5. I'm curious to know how much you liked it.
Yeah, well, I'm right there with you, Dave. This is another 5 out of 5 for me.
So we did make history because it's the first time we both have done a 5 out of 5. Let's go. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue. It's a classic, man. It's one that I watch at least once a year around this time. And
he's like, it's one I watch at least once a year in July.
But, yeah, so, yeah, there's no denying it's a great movie. It inspired so many other movies that came after it. So you definitely got to give it props. And, yeah, so this is up there for me.
Awesome. So we both agree it's a perfect Christmas horror movie.
Yes, for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad that we did this because it was one that I thought needed to be done as we have more Christmas horror movie episodes in the future. And I know Screamers are going to be excited to see what you pick for the next main event. But until then, you know, guys, we have the socials out there. We would love to hear from you. TikTok's kind of blowing up. Love seeing that. Andy and I both actively check all these accounts and participate. So if you want to communicate and say what's up, you can reach both of us on there. Otherwise, I love the suggestions that have been pouring in. People have been requesting movies, so we're going to get to those as well. We just had to go ahead and check the box for Christmas horror while it was December. But yeah, going forward, I just want to say thanks for all the love that we've got. If I can ask anything of our Screamers, I want to see some more love on the rating system. So if you guys do enjoy this podcast, let us know. You know, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. You can give us a thumbs up or a 5-star or a written review. It would help us get the downloads to even higher number than they're at, which I'm already like overwhelmed and blessed that they're at where they're at. So this is just a passion project from two guys who've been podcasting for a long time, but decided we'd give it one more go. And so we love everything we see, and we would love to see even more. So Andy, you got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just been enjoying I've been getting on TikTok too, and we've been having this back and forth thing, so it's been a lot of fun, and it's just a lot of fun talking about these movies and just talking about different topics, within the horror genre. So yeah, it's great, having a blast.
Awesome, man. And the other thing that's really fun to do is to riff on each other. And so come check out the TikTok, and you'll see the fun that Andy and I are having. But I think that about wraps it up, don't you?
Yep, that'll do it.
All right. Well, this is possibly one of our longest episodes, and so you can like it or love it. Either way, we're here to stay, man. So say until next time, I'm Phantom Dark Dave.
And I'm Abnormal Andy.
And we hope you guys are having a Merry Christmas, and stick around for the next episode. You've been listening to the Screamin' Skull Podcast.